Hey, welcome to Color Up. Today we're going to discuss a common myth that gets talked about all the time in the game of craps. Now, there are a lot of opinions out there, but the truth is, let you hang in there for a little bit. So the truth is that come bets and place bets can't really be compared fairly. They're very different bets. Now, the common myth about come bets is that you have to roll the number twice for a come bet to win. Now, that's not technically true. So let's go ahead and take a deep dive and look at the come bet versus the place bet. Now, if you're new to the game, you probably know how the pass line works. The very first roll of the dice, you win on a 7 or 11, you lose on a 2, 3, or 12. After that, this puck goes on a number, and then your pass line bet becomes whatever number this puck is on. The come bet works exactly the same, but you make the bet when there's already a puck on the number. So there's already, the pass line is already, the game is in the middle of a session basically. The come bet, I mean, basically you could write pass line bet here if you wanted to. So when you make your bet, let's say I'm gonna make a $10 bet in the come, it is now on a new game or a new come out roll. So if I roll a 7 or 11, I'm going to win my bet. If I roll a 2, 3, or 12, I would lose my bet. If I roll any other number, that number would become the come bet point. Let's imagine that the 5 rolls. They take your bet and they move it up inside the 5. Now, they very could well use another puck because it's basically like this game, but it's a secondary game. If I roll this, I win my point for the come bet. If I roll the 7 first, I lose the bet. So if you're a come bet player, it's like you have multiple pucks or multiple games going on at once. Hopefully that little example explains it a little bit easier. But basically it works just like the pass line, but you play it when the puck is already on a number. So let's get to the myth of the come bet. Let's say a player makes a come bet. For the come out roll, you're either gonna win, you're gonna lose, or you're gonna roll one of these box numbers. Let's say that the 5 rolls and our come moves to the 5. So we've had a roll of 5. Now what do we have to roll for this number to win again? We have to roll the 5 again. So whether you add odds or not, we'll talk about that in a minute, but you have to roll the 5 again. So we roll another 5, this come bet will come down and we'll get paid, right? We had to roll the number twice. So it seems like the myth is actually true. You have to roll the number twice, but that's not the whole story. So we have a place better who has their bet already established, and then we have a come better. So the 5 rolls, the come bet has to come inside, and the place better, meanwhile, he's going to win his bet. Now another 5 rolls, the come better comes down and gets paid. The place better is going to get paid again. So basically I've proven that a come bet does have to roll twice, right? And no, not exactly. And that's where the myth comes in, and that's what I'm going to explain now. Now, what makes the pass line and the come bet so special as opposed to place bets? Well, it's the very first roll, the come out roll. The 7 or 11 is a winner. There are 8 ways to roll it and only 4 ways to lose this bet. You are a 2-to-1 favorite to win your come bet. Every time you make a place bet, you're always the underdog. You're always more likely to lose your bet. Here in case of the 5, there are 6 ways to roll a 7. There are only 4 ways to roll a 5. You are a 3-to-2 underdog. The come bet, 2-to-1 favorite. So that's why these bets can't be compared fairly. They're 2 very different bets. The pass line or the come bet are a 2-stage bet. There's 2 parts of it. So you can consider the come out roll one part of the game. They have a big advantage to win, a 2-to-1 advantage for that first roll. They're not actually trying to establish a number. They're trying to win with that 7 or 11, where they have the big advantage. That's stage 1 of the come bet. So we don't really know what number is going to roll next. So if we don't win or lose, even though we're more likely to win this bet, if we don't win or lose, one of these numbers is going to roll. And let's just say it happens to be a 4 this time. We weren't hoping that a 4 rolls and that's roll 1, and then the 4 to roll again to win our bet. We were hoping to win with a 7 or 11 when we had the big advantage. That's the reason why you play the pass and the come bet. So stage 1 was an entirely completely different bet. Now that it's moved up, how many times does it have to hit to win? That's right. It just has to roll 1 time. You have to roll the 4 to win here. Place better has to roll the 5 to win here. They both have to hit 1 time in order to win. So anytime you hear someone say that come bets are bad because you have to roll the number twice, it's It's a myth. It's not really accurate because it's a two-stage bet. The first stage bet, you're betting on the 7 or 11. The second stage, you're betting on the number to roll once. That being said, there's some advantages and disadvantages to both bets. So let's look at the come bet a little bit. I mentioned that it's a two-stage bet, right? Usually if you're a come bet player, you might make multiple come bets. A lot of times you're going to have started out on the pass line bet. So while we say the big advantage for the come player is the come out roll for the come bet, where a 7 or 11 wins, what don't we want to happen right now? With a come bet, do we really want the 7 to roll? No, because we'd lose our pass line bet. What if we actually had odds behind our pass line bet? Then we really don't want a 7 to roll, right? What if we had multiple come bets already up in place and those had odds? Do we want a 7 to roll? Do we want the big advantage of the 7 or 11 to roll for our come bet? No, of course not. We would lose all these bets with all these odds. So that kind of defeats the advantage of the come out roll for the come bet. So now if you don't want to see the 7, the 11's a winner, but there's only 2 ways to roll the 11. So you have 2 ways to win. You still have the 2, 3, and 12 to lose. So you have 4 ways to lose and only 2 ways to win. Now you're the 2-to-1 underdog. You're more likely to lose this bet because you really don't want that 7 to roll. So that's the problem with a come bet. The other problem with the come bet is it actually gets paid less than an equivalent, mind you, equivalent, the same size bet on the place bet. Now this applies to a 3, 4, 5 times table, which is kind of your standard odds table, right? But if you're going to play 2 times odds or only 1 times odds or no odds, your place bet, you're always going to be better off making because you get paid more. Now, once you're at a table that is 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, that's where the huge advantage for the come bet player comes into effect. Not only is the house edge significantly lower, let's go back to the 5. Here, our place bet has a house edge of 4%. Over time, the casino is going to collect 4% of whatever amount is bet here. In this case, it's $10. This come bet, just of how the long-term math works, you're going to win. You have the big advantage to win versus lose on the first roll, and then it comes up and then it has the same chance to win or lose versus the place bet. Once you factor that in, the house edge is only 1.4%. Now when you add odds, which is the great reason to make come bets, you actually lower the overall house edge of the combined bet, the $10 plus the odds. Let's say we put up $30 in odds here. Now our house edge for this total $40 bet is actually lower than 1.4%. So long term, the casino is going to take significantly less money out of the come bet. The place better, he's always going to be giving up 4% of all of his winnings. Now that's just the long-term mathematical facts. The come bet is definitely a better bet when you're considering it over the long term. Over the lifetime, if you're a come bet player versus a place player, you really should be a come bet player because over time you're going to lose less money. Now, if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, I'm not sure that I subscribe to long-term math for the player who plays a couple hours on the weekend. The casino, yes, absolutely, they could bank on these numbers, and they actually do. But as a player who just plays the weekend, you know, maybe a couple times a month, couple times a year, whatever, we're basically facing the short term. We've got to beat the odds and win. We can't count on the math because if we're going to rely on the math, we're going to lose every single time to the casino. So I mentioned that the come bet, we don't actually want it to roll a 7 for the come out roll, well, unless we don't have any other bets, but typically you do have other come bets or you have a pass line bet. So we lose that advantage. So that's a negative for the come bet. We mentioned that because of the house edge, the come bet, that's a great advantage for it. Because we can add odds, that is another advantage to the come bet. And that could be a significant advantage if you're playing at a table that allows 5 times, 10 times, 20 times. There's even a couple casinos in the country that will allow you to make 100 times your bet. Now, I can't imagine making a $10 come bet and then placing $1,000 in odds, but you could. In this case, you're making a $1,000 bet with no house edge, a completely true and fair game. The come bet does have the house edge remains there, but for this $1,000, no edge. Now let me go back to what I briefly mentioned a minute ago, and that was that the place bet pays more than a come bet with odds. Now this is typically why I'm a place better, because I can't take true advantage of the 7 for the come out roll. So that's kind of a wash. So stage 1 of the come bet is a wash. So once it comes up, they're kind of comparative. After the come bet travels, we can compare the bets a little closer. It's still not a true comparison because of the house edge, but we can compare payoffs and when and how they get paid. All right, so let's first take a look at some come bets. We're just going to ignore stage 1 of the game. They make a come bet, the 4 rolls, it goes inside the 4. Let's say this player, he would like to take single odds. So single odds would just be a $10 in odds. The place better, so we've got a $20 bet. The place better, he could just say, you know what, I'd like to make a place bet on the 4. And actually, that's going to be a buy bet at $20. You'd want to buy this instead of place it. So we'll make it a buy bet. All right, the come player makes another come bet. They roll a 5. It travels into the 5. They're just going to do the same thing. It's just single odds. We don't have, odds are a great bet as long as you have the bankroll. I don't have a huge bankroll. I'm just going to make single odds, right? So we've got another $20 bet here. So we'll make a player B will have a $20 place bet. All right, let's take another chance at this. Come bet player makes another come bet. Again, we're ignoring stage 1. It's going to travel to the 6. You know what? Let's add $10 in odds. I'd love to add $1,000 in odds. I can't do it. Well, one, because most tables don't allow that, but that's another story. I'm just going to put single odds because it's a great bet, right? Everyone tells you, no house edge, great bet. So we got a $20 bet, and we have a $20 place bet. You'll notice that this is an improper bet. It should be multiples of 6, so it should be 18 or 24, but I'm just going to leave it at 20 to see how it pays off. Remember, when we're not considering stage 1 of the games, these bets become a little more comparable. So what has to happen for these bets to win? The number has to roll once, right? Remember, we've eliminated the myth that the come bet has to roll twice. They're already established. For each of these bets to win, the number has to roll 1 time. So let's compare them. We have a $20 bet here, the 4 rolls. The first thing you'll have to know about a come bet is that if a come bet hits, it has to come down off the number. We have $10 in odds, which is going to get paid true fair odds of $20, and we have a flat bet of $10. So our $20 bet is going to win $30. Our buy bet of $20 is going to win $40. Remember, it gets paid true odds also, 2 to 1. Minus a $1 vig, or 5% of the bet. 5% of $20, $1. So a $20 bet is going to get paid $39. So remember, stage 1 of the game didn't benefit us. So once the come bet traveled to the 4, they're equivalent bets. We have the same amount. Here we win $30, here we win $39. Which one would you rather do? Yes, house edge is lower here on the come bet with true odds. Let's say we don't even buy this bet. Let's say we just keep it as a place bet for whatever reason. Of course, at $20 and higher, you should always buy it. But let's say we don't, we just make it a place bet. Even with a place bet payment of 9 to 5, we're going to get $36. All right, let me quickly cover the other numbers and show how they compare in payoffs. And then we'll go bump up to 3, 4, 5 times odds. Right now, we're just dealing with single odds. Let's take a look at the 5. Now, if it rolls, it has to come down, remember. Now, if you have a new come bet, it doesn't have to come down because, the new come bet will come on. But if you have a 5, no more come bets, it has to come down and get paid. So our $10 in odds gets paid 3 to 2. So we're going to win 15 for the odds, 10 for the flat. So our $20 bet is going to win $25. Our $20 place bet gets paid 7 to 5. We're going to get paid $28 for our place bet. 25 versus 28. If we want to bet on the 5 again, place bet's ready to go. The come bet, we're going to have to make another come bet, and it's going to have to travel again. All right, and then last we have the 6 here, a 6 rolls. Remember, our bet comes down, so we're going to get paid $12 for the odds, 10 for the flat. So let's say $22 is our payment there. What is our $20 6 here? Remember, this is an improper bet, but we're going to see how it works out. So what they do in this case is they calculate how much can get paid true at the place bet odds of 7 to 6. Well, $18 of this bet is going to get paid 7 to 6. So for the first $18, we're going to get paid $21. And then that leaves us with $2 that they're going to round down. So the extra $2, they're just going to pay you flat 1 to 1, so you're going to get $2. So even though this was an improper bet, the odds bet we get 22, place bet we get 23. All right, so you say, well, yeah, but I'm not gonna play single odds. I'm gonna come better because I wanna put a lot more odds on the table because that's the zero house edge bet. I wanna get as much money as I can on that. All right, awesome, let's take a look at that. All right, so let's go ahead and get our $10 bet down. We're allowed to have 3 times odds, so let's go 30 in odds on that 4. We have the 5, $10 bet. We could do 4 times odds. So we're gonna do a $40 bet there on that one. And then the 6 and 8, I'm just dealing with one side of the table, but it works the same over here. So a $10 bet, we can add 5 times odds. It's gonna be a $50 bet in odds. All right, so we have $60 here. Let's make the same player or another player is gonna make a $60 place bet. Same amount, just so there you can compare them. We have a $50 bet here for our odds player. We're gonna make a $50 place bet. We have a $40 bet here. So let's make a $40, and there's no way that you would place this. You're always gonna buy. So let's just go ahead and make that a buy bet. All right, remember this is a 3, 4, 5 times odd. You're told by everyone, hey, always max your odds. Great, we've maxed our odds. What does this look like? All right, our $60 place better, his $60 bet is going to get paid $50, $60, $70. Our odds player, the bet's gonna come down. For his odds, he's gonna get paid 60. For his flat bet, he's only gonna get paid 10. So guess what he gets paid? He's gonna get paid 50, 60, 70. Exact same bet. Our place better, he's ready to win again. Our come better, he's gotta make another come bet to get back up on the number if he wanted to. Let's take a look at the 5. Again, $50 bet, pays 7 to 5. The place player is going to get paid $70. Our come bet player is gonna come down. His $40 in odds is going to get paid 3 to 2. That's pretty cool. He's going to get paid $60 for the odds, $10 for the flat. $70. Again, the same amount. So as far as payment goes, it's a wash on both the 6 and 8. The come bet player, he has a lower house edge, and he's getting paid true odds, or there's no house edge on his odds bet. But the actual payout, so long term, he's going to be better off, but the actual payout is exactly the same on a 3, 4, 5 times table. He does have to come back through the come bet if he wants to bet the 5 again, though. All right, so let's get rid of these. And we'll take a look at the 4. Our $40 player here, he's going to get paid 80. The VIG's going to be $2, so he's actually going to win 78. Our come bet player is going to come down. His $30 is going to pay 2 to 1. That's awesome. So he's going to get paid 60 and then $10 for the flat. He's going to get paid $70. 70, 78. So here the place better is actually better off. Even if you didn't buy this bet and it was just a straight place bet, let's say they take the VIG up front, so you don't want to make, a buy bet and you do a place bet, this is still going to get paid 50. I can get my chips here, 72. So even still, you're better off making a place bet. Now this is a reason why I think casinos actually have established the tables at 3, 4, 5 times odds. I don't know, it's just kind of my personal conspiracy theory. But anytime you're above that, absolutely come bet with odds, you're gonna get paid better. So if I work this out at 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, 100 times, the odds player is going to get paid more. So I tried to make this as fair as possible. Again, there is a huge advantage to the come bet, and that's the first roll of the game. The problem is, most likely, most of the times, you actually don't want to take advantage of that advantage, right? You don't want the 7 to roll. You actually want to establish a number and then add your odds. So if I quickly run through it, you basically lose the advantage of the 7 for the come out roll. Once it's established, you got a lower house edge. You can make an odds bet at 0% house edge. And if you have a table that does more than 3, 4, 5, you're going to get paid better on those odds bet. The negatives, if you're playing lower than 3, 4, 5 times odds, you're going to get paid more with an equivalent place bet. The problem is once a number gets hit and rolled, you have to make a come bet, go back up onto the number. And that's kind of where that myth that we started this video with is that you have to roll a number twice. Not exactly true, but because you have to keep coming back in, it kind of seems like you have to roll the number twice. Whether you're a come bet player, it has it as advantages, or you're a place bet player, I don't know, what a tongue twister. It also has it advantages. Which do you prefer, the lower house edge? Do you prefer the better payouts because you're not a big odds player? There's some give and take. You can't fairly compare the two, but I can say that there is a myth. You do not have to roll the number twice. It's a different bet. It has two different stages to the come bet. So however you like to play, good luck on coloring up.